Hi bead friends, I'm back with the other half of our tutorial. We made already the bracelet Ipazia, and now we're gonna learn how to make the earrings that go with the bracelets. So again, the earrings Ipazia, so that you can complete the set. Since in the previous tutorial of the bracelet, you learned how to make the mini and the medium square, today you will learn how to make the bigger square. So if you haven't followed our bracelet tutorial for the Ipazia bracelet, go ahead and have a look at it to make the first two squares, and then come back to this tutorial to make the bigger one. Let me explain the materials that you will need today to make the earrings, just the earrings. So to make the earrings as if you hadn't made your bracelet, because you will have some materials left over for the bracelet. But if you're doing only the earrings, this is the material that you will need. You will need size 10 beading needles. Then you will need string that is KO thread. I'm using white. You can use whichever color you have. And with my KO thread, I like to wax it. So I have my beeswax. In the tutorial, you will see me using my thread Heaven, but unfortunately this is not in production anymore, so you can't get your hands on it, but the beeswax does a great job of waxing the cord just as well. Then you will need pliers to attach the two components to each other. Then you will need scissors to cut the thread. Then you will need size 3 millimeters of bicone Swarovski. You will need 6 in total for the earrings. Then you will need a pair of flat earring posts so that you can glue them to the mini components. And then you will need 4 mini jump rings. These are size 4 millimeters. They're the smallest that we carry, and they actually go through the Delica. So it's very important to have the right size jump ring. Otherwise, you're risking of breaking a bead. Then, last and not least important, you will need 4 colors of Delica Miyuki size 11. Now, I will be making the earrings in my carnival colorway because it's the easiest to see, and it's the same colors that I was using for my bracelet, so it will be easier to see the progress and the change between the medium square and the big square. And these are the actual colors that I'm using. So I'll show it to you. Here are the earrings made in Carnival. As always, the kits are available on our site, and we have 4 colorways. So this is the Carnival. This one is the Forest combination. Then we have the Royal combination. And last but not least, we have the Starry Night combination, which is inspired by the Starry Night in summer nights. So I'll show you how to set up your thread. I've cut a yard of thread and I thread it on my needle. A yard will be more than enough to make a full earring, so all 3 squares. Then I take a bit of my wax and I just pass it through, making a little cylinder around the thread. And once it's encased in the wax, then I pull through it so that it's covered. I do it a few times so that my thread becomes less, it becomes waxed practically. Now the earrings and the squares of the earrings are made using peyote stitch circular, and so circular peyote stitch and herringbone stitch for the corners of the squares. And we will be using, as I said, 4 colors of Delica size 11, and I'll name them A, B, C, and D colors. And as you can see, I have the same colors in the bigger beads so that you will see them. So right now I'll be working with the bigger beads. One thing that I forgot is that in the materials, you actually use also one of these little rugs to work on because it's very useful. So I've pre-made a square, the mini square, the one that we actually made in the bracelet. As you can see, it's exactly the same, except that I have the bicone on the one that I've made in the previous tutorial. So I'll be making a new row, a new round, adding it from this, which is the base for the mini. This is a mini base square, and we'll add a row right now. So since we finished with the blue, which was A color, we'll switch to the B color, which in my case is green. So I'll pick up a bead. I've already done the step up as usual. And I go next to the next bead. In total for this round, I'll be adding 9 beads, and I'll simply go around. It's something, this round comes pretty natural because you're actually just working in peyote, circular peyote, because you're going around and in the corners, you only have 1 bead. So you're just adding 1 bead in between all the blues, 3 for each side of the square. Try not to pull too tight. Tension is important in this work, because otherwise the square won't lie flat. That's why I prefer using KO thread, whereas to Fireline, which I usually use in most of my beadwork. So I like switching up the thread depending on the project to fit what's best for the project. I get very often the question, which is the best thread? I don't think there's a best thread. I think that there's the best thread for that project. As you can see, I've added almost all my beads. Last one, and I end up where I've started off, in the corner of my blue. Now, important, at the end of each round, just like with the other squares, you'll have to do the step up. So you pass in the first bead that you added for this round. And there you go. Okay. So you can see how it's getting larger in respect to the previous one. So I finished and added the green round to my smaller example made with Delica size 11, so that you can see it. And let's see what the difference. So these are the two in comparison. Okay, you can see that in the smaller version, my square is much flatter. The bigger beads with the different thread that I'm using for them tend to bend more because since they're bigger, it's harder to make them fit, let's say. Now we will need to add a new row, a new round, using our orange beads, which are letter C. I'll go back to my big beads first to show you clearly. So I'll pick up 1 bead, and the first 2 beads I'll work with circular peyote, so adding 1 bead at a time in between the green beads. Then after 2 beads I get to the corner, and in this row we have to actually do make an increase. So we add 3 beads, 3 orange beads all together on the thread, and then we pass through the first green bead on the next side, just like we've done, if you remember, in row 3 for the beginning of the square. Then we work again 2 orange beads in circular peyote, and then once you get to the second corner, again 3 beads of the C color, which the orange is for me. So you're actually doing herringbone, but with an increase, because instead of adding 2 beads, you're adding 3. Another thing that I'd like to point out, again in this tutorial, is that I'm left-handed, for those of you who haven't watched one of my other tutorials. So I work counterclockwise, whereas if you're actually right-handed, you will be working clockwise. So don't let that bother you too much. So again, I added 2 beads for the side, 3 in the corner, so I repeat the pattern as such until I finish the round. The easy part is that all sides and corners are the same, so you have to remember basically 2 steps and repeat them around in the right order. Here we are. Try and get your beads to lie flat first of all, and then possibly making a corner with the center bead. So here we are. Then I'm going to step up in the first orange bead that I've actually added, which is the one that you find in front of you. And now I'll show it to you in the other colorway with the smaller beads. Okay, so I've added the same new round in the C color to the smaller version of my example. Again, you can see, and you can see, I want to show you with the smaller square so you can start seeing the difference, because this square is starting to become big. And here's the middle one. Okay. Now, this is the small one, and this is the large one. What we're going to do is practically from like before, as you can see, the orange round is always an increase, and then the next one to end the increase is in pink because it's the D color, and you actually add 2 beads so that you finish the increase. So it's practically a pattern that we're actually repeating. I'll show you what I mean. We're going to add a new round with the deep beads, which are the pink. So I'll be adding 1 and 2 beads in circular peyote, one at a time. And once I add the second one, I go through just the first bead of the increase of the 3. So just the first one. Then I add 2 beads because I'm in the corner, so I actually switch to herringbone. I skip the middle bead of the increase of the row before this and go through the third one. If you remember, it's exactly what we did at the beginning of this square. So it's a kind of pattern that repeats itself. So when you want to go bigger, you have to do first a round, adding 3 beads in the corners, and then adding a second row where you finish off the increase by adding 2 herringbones in the corners. That's the idea. Again, I got to a corner, so I'll be adding just 1 bead and going through the first bead of the 3. 2 beads for the corner, because it's herringbone, and then I go through the third one, skipping the central one. Again, 3 beads for this side because the number of beads that are worked in peyote is increasing with our increase. And then 2 beads for the corner. One, 2, 3, and just first through the first one. 2 for the corners. Skip and go into the third one. And now you've actually started on a side that was beginning. So as you can see, our step up is not in the corner, it's just after it. So I have my last pink bead that I have to add, go through the orange one. This way I'm finishing the round. And now I have to step up in the first pink bead that I added, which is the one right in front of me. There you go. Now with this last round, it gets more stabilization, so it comes to the square figure. It's clearer, I think. So let me show you the pink round added to my Delica size 11 square. Here we are. You can see that it's maybe slightly more curved because it's getting harder to keep it flat when there's so many beads. The bicone will help, and also the last round. So now back to the last round and back to our big example. We'll be using 8 colors bead, which is blue for me. We've done the step up, add 1 bead and go back through the next one. So we'll be adding 2 beads for now and peyote. And then once you get to the corner, you'll be adding just 1 bead in between the 2 because it's the last row. And you want to finish off with a corner bead. So practically we're working the whole square in peyote stitch, adding 1 bead at a time in between the pink beads. Be careful that your thread doesn't get caught up. And just go around. In total, you'll be adding 20 beads. So you could count them before, and then at the end of the round, check that you've used them all. That means that you've done your round correctly. I do that sometimes when I have a lot of beads and maybe I'm using the same color over and over again, round after round, to be sure that I've added all the beads, because it kind of becomes peyote circular. It becomes kind of meditative. So it's like a meditation. So my hands just keep going, like knitting or like crocheting, if any of you do that as well. So I have to check sometimes that my work is actually doing right, because I'm not paying it that much attention when I'm using all of the same color and I'm just going round and round and round. Let me know if you have some other tricks to keep track of all the beads and the stitches. I'd love to hear about it. And I've done the step up, and this is my last row. So the square is finished. Let me show you with the other big squares the difference. Here you are, you can see clearly the 3 different sizes. Now we'll have to add the bicone to the big square, and I'll show you that just to have it in this tutorial as well, and then how to put them all together. And we're almost done. So let me show you the two squares, if it actually focuses on everything. There you go. So the 2 squares close to each other, they're all finished. And now we're gonna add the bicone. So again, we'll do it to the bigger one, which is easier to see. I've taken my thread tail, which I've left at the beginning of my square. It's coming out of one of the blue beads in the center. Which one is the same? You add a bicone, size 3 on your original size, and then pass through. You see that my thread is coming out from this bead on the bottom, on the top corner here. Then we're gonna go from the top to the bottom through the bead that is exactly in front of the first one. And then we have to pass back through the bicone. You can see that now it's attached to this bead on both sides this way. And then to finish it off, you have to go through the bead that you started off, but not on the side from which you have the string coming out already. So from the other one, other side. There you go. And now your bicone is nice and secure and placed exactly how we want it. I'd go back through again at least another time, all of it, so that you attach it really, really nice and tight and you're sure of your work. And once you're done like that, you can close off the thread. Now I'll show you how to close off the thread on my longer thread because it's easier to show you. Right now, after you've added your bicones, you have to finish off all the threads that you have because we don't need them anymore to put together the squares. So I'm coming out of this blue bead. I go under with my needle the thread that passes between this blue bead and this pink bead. You get a ring of thread. You go through the ring, doesn't matter which side through, and you pull. This way you've knotted, you made a knot on this thread that's passing between the 2 beads. Then you move a few beads over. Since I was in the blue, I have to move over to the pink. Always follow the direction and the make of your work. So if you're in the blue, you'll have to go in the pink. You can't go directly to the blue, otherwise you'll see your thread. That's what I mean. be careful of your thread path. Again, I'll make a knot. So I'm coming out of the pink bead. I go through under the needle that passes between the pink and the blue. Get a ring, go through the ring with my needle and pull. Make sure that the knot falls in between the beads and doesn't get hooked up on any other beads. You move again a few beads over and then you can cut your thread. I always do 2 knots in a row, separated between a few beads, and then I always move over a few beads before I cut my thread. And there you go. That's my square nice and finished. Now I'll finish off this tail. Okay, so we have the 3 sizes in order, and as you can see, I've already placed them on my mat with the corners that are next to each other because the earrings are attached with the squares that are actually sitting as a diamond, and they're interconnected with 2 jump rings, as I was saying. And this is actually the Mocha Mousse color combination that I forgot to show you at the beginning of the tutorial. I like it. Mocha Mousse is the color of the year for Pantone. It's not actually in my colors, in the colors that I usually use, so I've had kind of a difficult time putting it together because it's not in my colorways. It's not a color that I tend to use, but I actually like the end result. So this is the bracelet, and that's the earrings that you'll find on the site with all the other kits as well. So back to our tutorial, I'll show you how to put together. So for this step, you'll need 2 jump rings for each earring and your pliers. I'm gonna get my jump ring, I'm gonna find the opening, I'm gonna put it at the top, and then I'll take one side of the jump ring with my pliers, with my flat pliers, and one side of the jump ring with my round pliers. Now, my hand that has the round pliers just keeps still. It's the one with the flat pliers that opens, and I'll bring the jump ring that I'm keeping in my hand towards me. This is the way that you open jump rings without deforming them. You don't want to go like this, but you want to go like that. Once it's open, you go put it through one bead. Now, it won't be as easy as in my big beads. You have to go slowly and snuggle the jump ring in. Don't force it. If you see that you're having trouble with one of the corners, it's possible to just switch around the square and try the other corner around, because they don't have a direction. They don't need to be hooked up on one of particular corner. So don't force the bead because you might break it and then you'll have to go back and add it in. So it's happened to me, so be careful. That's why also I told you not to pass through back all the beads too much, because you'll fill up these beads and then you won't be able to pass through with the jump ring. So once they're both in the jump ring, again, you take your pliers and you go in reverse. So the side that I moved is again the one with the flat, and it goes away from me towards their jump ring so that they meet up. Now, they're not yet meeting up, so I continue until they are. And then if I have a bit of a space in here, I don't really right now in my example, but if you do, you take your pliers, get both sides of the jump ring, and you press firmly. Now, it's not a question of strength, it's a question of precision. So you have to dose your strength to push the 2 sides together without exaggerating, because otherwise you're going to ruin the jump ring. It's harder here to show you because the jump ring is so big in respect to the plier. And there you go. Now you have your 2 pieces together. Repeat the same thing between the medium square and the small square. And then once that's done, you'll need to glue your earring post to the center of your squares. One thing that I forgot actually is that you have to be sure that when you link the 2 squares together, the bicones sit on the same side. So I had to make sure that I was passing them through, and that once I open it up, both bicones are on the same side, because this will be the front of my earring and this will be the behind. It's also important because once you've linked them all together, then you have the side where there isn't the bicone. It's where your post has to go on. So you'll need some glue for this. It's another thing that I forgot about the materials, but you'll find a list of the materials on the description of the tutorial. So if you have a doubt about what you need, I actually always put all the materials either there or on our site. So if you don't find it in the description, just click the link for the tutorial for the kits, and it will bring you to my site where you'll find all the list of materials. And that's the end of our tutorial for today, bead friends. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to sign up to our channel to receive all the news, and it really helps me in my job in trying to get my bead tutorials around the world and people to enjoy beadwork, which is the prime mission for these tutorials, let's say. So please click the button to sign up and click the bell to get all the news. And if you would like to leave me a comment and tell me if you like the tutorial or if you have any questions, you can do it right under the tutorial. Once again, you can find all the kits on our site, which is www.happybead.it. And you can also follow us on social media if you'd like. I always put extras as I'll be posting this little snippet of how I made actually a version of the earring, and I kind of like it a lot. So you can follow us on Instagram. You can find us as Happy Bead Milano, or you can find us on Facebook as Happy Bead La Fabbrica delle Perline. Until the next tutorial, take care and thank you for watching. Bye bye!